Deputy Financial Secretary says the Wang Fuk Court buyout program is a human-centric one. Hong Kong ports busy as holidaymakers return to the city after Lunar New Year break. And across the country, millions are going back to work at the end of the Spring Festival break. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. The government will allocate $6.8 billion for the buyout of homes at Wang Fuk Court, following a catastrophic fire late November. In an exclusive interview with TVB News, Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong described the proposal as a human-centric plan that is financially manageable. While 3,900 subsidized flats will be allocated to Wang Fuk owners who have sold their titles, Secretary for Housing Winnie Ho believes with the increasing housing supply, this should not cause a huge impact to general applicants. Samantha Lee spoke with them.
It has been nearly 3 months since the tragic Wang Fuk Court fire, which claimed 168 lives. Under the government's titled acquisition plan, homeowners will be offered $10,500 per square foot for units with paid-up land premiums and $8,000 for those who have not paid premium. They have to make up their minds by the end of August, or else the options will no longer be available. However, 12% of owners indicated that they will not accept the title acquisition, while 14% remained undecided, according to the results of the questionnaire launched last month. Speaking with TVB News, Deputy Financial Secretary Michael Wong said the plan adheres to the principles of empathy, reason, and law.
Those issues obviously it's not possible to have a package that can satisfy the need of everyone. After all, we are talking about some 1,700 households. I think it is important that we do have an effective scheme. Effective in the sense of enabling the owners concerned to satisfy their long-term housing needs in a reasonable manner.
With the acquisition price 1/3 higher than the initial estimate, what percentage of owners do you expect will accept the offer?
Oh, again, we don't have any estimate at this stage. It's impossible. The engagement will start to engage with them, and so hopefully by May or June, we will have a more accurate picture of how things unfold.
Meanwhile, owners of Wan Chi House, the block which stayed intact, are not included in the government's acquisition proposal. Wang said if they are able to reach a high degree of consensus, the authorities will be willing to explore possibilities with them. With regards to the options for fire victim families, some 3,900 subsidized housing units are earmarked for them. Will this be unfair to other ordinary applicants?
We have been working very hard to increase the overall public housing supply. Before, it's just about 4,000 per year. And this time in our home ownership scheme and the Green Farm scheme 2025, we can offer 9,700. So out of this 9,700, which is in the original 2025 HOS scheme, we have taken out like 2,000 under this special scheme. We still have 7,000. So compare with previous year, like 4,000, actually everyone can, have more chance to get a subsidized sales flat.
Samantha Lee, TVB News.
The Hong Kong Federation of Insurers said the right to claim the fire insurance payout will be transferred to the government if property owners of units devastated by the Wang Fuk Court fire accept the government's buyout plan. This as home insurance plans purchased individually would not be affected.
Authorities earlier announced its finalized plan to acquire the 7 damaged buildings of the Tai Po housing estate. They noted that the buyout plan will include subsidies of up to $4 billion coming from public coffers, adding that the compensation could be obtained through insurance plans in the future. Speaking on a radio program, Hong Kong Federation of Insurers Chief Selina Lau said the compensation is capped at $2 billion, with the insurance plan intended to be used for the restoration of the housing complex to its original state. She further noted that if the property owners proceed with their decision to sell their units to the government, the insurance payout will also go to the authorities. This has allowed said homeowners who purchased home insurance plans on an individual basis will not be subject to this change of ownership. Meanwhile, responses to the government's questionnaire pertaining to affected property owners indicated that 9% insist on reconstruction at the original site. Speaking on the feasibility of this measure, the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors noted its initial estimations for a full-scale reconstruction will cost around $2.7 billion. While there are no real technical challenges, the Institute said there are considerations that need to be made regarding the complex's deed of mutual covenant and property deed. Tony Wan, the Institute's president, said affected property owners need to reach a consensus on the issue before starting the restoration project, but stressed the challenge of getting all owners to agree.
The 2026-27 budget is set to be delivered this Wednesday and will feature a purple cover. Financial Secretary Paul Chan said the color symbolizes the city's strengthening internal momentum amid changing environment. Writing on his weekly blog, the finance chief gave a first glimpse of the upcoming budget. The cover is purple, which he said represents Hong Kong's intrinsic economic momentum. Gathering different ideas in the past weeks, Chan said the government had conducted a holistic assessment to ensure the proposals achieve an overall balance. Chan mentioned that the city's economy started this year well, following sustained economic growth last year. He added the government is working hard to boost the economy and improve people's livelihoods. As the Lunar New Year public holidays and the weekend draw to a close, the Immigration Department expects today to be the peak for return travel. As of 4 p.m., more than 373,000 arrivals were recorded. Samantha Lee has more.
Time to head home. Residents are making their way back to Hong Kong today. At the Shenzhen Bay port, the influx of returnees grew steadily throughout the afternoon. The police implemented crowd control measures, with residents and tourists seen snaking in long queues to reach the public transport interchange. Large crowds could be seen outside the checkpoint, but many travelers said the immigration process was pretty smooth. This man said it only took him about 5 minutes for the clearance. Similar scenes were found at the West Kowloon high-speed rail station. Many were hauling luggage, likely items bought during the long holiday. There were non-Hong Kong residents too. As the Chinese Mainland Spring Festival Golden Week nears its end, some tourists were seizing the final few hours to visit Hong Kong. Coming all the way from Shanghai, this visitor said he was going to stay in the city for 3 days and explored attractions in Tsim Sha Tsui, Central, Causeway Bay and Kennedy Town. Shortly after midday, the Hong Kong International Airport's arrival hall was also packed with returning residents. Going back to work is never fun, but the trip was great. This man returned in the afternoon, a bit earlier than most, because of a cheaper flight ticket. The Transport Department said it had instructed public transport operators to step up services to cope with the high demand. Samantha Lee, TVB News.
Millions of holidaymakers across China are heading back to their workplaces of homes this weekend, as the official 9-day Spring Festival holiday draws to a close on Monday. Tracy Furness has more.
Transportation authorities are expecting the number of domestic passenger trips to hit its peak on Sunday during the Spring Festival travel rush. Also known as Chunyun, the rush is the world's largest annual human migration, as millions embark on journeys across the nation to reunite with families to celebrate the Lunar New Year. From Tuesday to Saturday, more than 1.6 billion interregional passenger trips were made across China, averaging 320 million trips per day, a year-on-year increase of over 11%. The country's railway system is expected to handle 17.93 million passenger trips, whereas highway traffic is projected to surpass 71 million vehicle trips on Sunday. Even the country's waterway transport system is expected to take up more than 1.4 million passenger trips. Multi-measures such as adding special trains and extending subway operation hours have been adopted to ensure safety and convenience on the return journey. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
The mainland experienced its worst sandstorms of the year so far, affecting more than 50 northern cities. Local meteorological authorities said the storms will gradually head toward the south, hitting areas including Shanghai and Jiangsu. Visibility remains low in the nation's capital of Beijing, with popular landmarks such as the ruins of the old summer palace covered entirely in dust, reported in Inner Mongolia, with this year's sandstorms originating from the Mongolia-Inner Mongolia border. The weather phenomenon affected several flights, delaying 30% of flights at Beijing Daxing International Airport on Saturday. And still ahead, U.S. President Donald Trump raises global tariffs to 15%. Welcome back. U.S. President Donald Trump said he wants a global tariff of 15%, up from 10% he had announced a day earlier. This after the U.S. Supreme Court struck down many of the far-reaching taxes on imports that Trump imposed over the past year. Meanwhile, French President Emmanuel Macron said time was needed to analyze and adapt to any consequences of the tariffs. Tracy Furness has more.
Trump's announcement on social media was the latest sign that despite the court's check on his powers, the Republican president still intends to ratchet up tariffs to 15%. Tariffs have been his favorite tool for rewriting the rules of global commerce and applying international pressure. The Supreme Court Friday struck down tariffs Trump had imposed on nearly every country using an emergency powers law. Trump said he will use a different, albeit more limited, legal authority to get his way. Trump has already signed an executive order enabling him to bypass Congress and impose a 10% tax on imports from around the world starting Tuesday, the same day as his State of the Union speech. However, those tariffs are limited to 150 days unless they are extended legislatively. The White House did not immediately respond to a message inquiring when the president would sign an updated order to peg the tariffs to 15%. Commenting on Trump's global tariffs, French President Emmanuel Macron said time was needed to analyze and adapt to any consequences of tariffs. Meanwhile, U.S. business owner Dawn Wagner in Vermont said she was happy with the Supreme Court's ruling, but doesn't see it positively affecting the cost of doing business. The chocolatier relies on imported cocoa beans from West Africa and Central America to make her chocolate.
I am relying on it being imported, so the tariffs have definitely affected me. It is definitely stressful. I wish anything would go through the right channels and through Congress and all the way it's supposed to, but I don't have faith that it's really going to change much. Once a price spike has happened, it kind of sits there.
Tracy Furness, TVB News.
This week marked 40 days since the deadliest days of the crackdown on anti-government demonstrators in Iran. Multiple videos have been circulating online showing demonstrations in towns and cities around the country. Tracy Furness again.
Videos posted online this week showed a crowd of hundreds at the main cemetery in the small town of Abdanan, chanting "Death to Khomeini," pumping their fists after a 16-year-old boy was killed on January 8th during a government crackdown on anti-government demonstrators. Videos of the earlier crackdown showed security forces firing from an armoured vehicle, raising clouds of what appears to be tear gas, sending men and women running. U.S. President Donald Trump warned Friday that limited strikes against Iran are possible even as the country's top diplomat said Tehran expects to have a proposed deal ready in the next few days following nuclear talks with the U.S. Tensions between the longtime adversaries have ramped up as the Trump administration pushes for concessions from Iran and has built up the largest U.S. military presence in the Middle East in decades. Although Iran insists its nuclear program is peaceful, the U.S. and others suspect it aimed at eventually developing weapons.
Thousands of people took part in the funerals of 3 Hezbollah members who were killed in Israeli strikes on eastern Lebanon. Israeli airstrikes killed 8 members of the militant group, including several local officials. The Israeli military said that several members of Hezbollah's missile array in 3 different command centers in the Baalbek area were eliminated. Lebanon's health ministry said that the strikes killed 10 people and wounded 24, including 3 children. The death toll from Friday's strike was unusually high and comes at a time of intensified tensions in the region as the U.S. has threatened to strike Iran. Ukrainian forces struck an industrial site deep inside Russia on Saturday, which Ukraine and unofficial Russian news channels say was a state-owned missile factory. The attack in Russia's Udmurt Republic left 11 people wounded. Ukraine's general staff said its forces struck a key missile plant near the city of Votkinsk, using Ukrainian-made Flamingo cruise missiles rather than drones. This was echoed by an unofficial Russian news channel on Telegram, Astra, and the strike targeted the Votkinsk machine-building plant, a major state defense enterprise. Of those injured, 3 people were hospitalized. The attacked city is more than 1,400 kilometers from Ukraine, and the plant produces Iskander ballistic missiles, often used in strikes against Ukraine. NASA's new moon rocket suffered another setback on Saturday, which likely bumps the first manned lunar trip in decades to April. The U.S. Space Agency revealed the latest problem just 1 day after targeting March 6th for the Artemis II mission. Overnight, the flow of helium to the rocket's upper stage was interrupted. Solid helium flow is essential for purging the engines and pressuring the fuel tanks. Officials say the setback would take the March launch window out of consideration, and the next opportunities would be at the beginning or end of April. Pakistan said it carried out strikes along the border of Afghanistan, targeting hideouts of Pakistani militants it blames for recent attacks inside the country. Islamabad did not say precisely which areas the strikes were carried out or provide other details. In Kabul, Afghan government said Pakistan carried out strikes inside Afghanistan. They accused Pakistan's military of carrying out the strikes to compensate for what they described as security weaknesses inside their own country. At least 2 people were killed and 7 others injured in a shooting during an apparent fight in the U.S. city of Richmond, Virginia. Local police said a man and a woman died at the scene. A police officer saw a large commotion with his car speeding away and found the man and woman who had suffered multiple gunshot wounds. Another 3 men and 4 women were taken to hospital with gunshot wounds. A local TV station reported that several family members had gathered for a birthday celebration in the Shako Bottom district when the shooting took place. 4 hikers were rescued after being stranded during a snowy mountain hike in Italy's Abruzzo region. One of the hikers developed early frostbite in his lower limbs, according to Italian Alpine Rescue. The 4 were evacuated by helicopter and transferred to a hospital in Chieti, a city 200 kilometers from Rome. About 3,000 people joined a march organized by far-right groups on Saturday after a nationalist activist died from a beating in the French city of Lyon, in an incident that highlighted a climate of deep political tensions ahead of next year's presidential vote. French President Emmanuel Macron called for calm ahead of the tribute to Quentin Durand, 23, who died of brain injuries in a hospital last week. The demonstrations took place under heavy police scrutiny with no major incidents reported. 7 people have been handed preliminary charges. The Lyon Public Prosecutor's Office requested that each of them be charged with intentional homicide, aggravated violence, and criminal conspiracy. And that's the news. Thanks for watching.